been a little while since I last posted for my game, and I figured that the best way to cover all of the things that I've added is to have one big update video. The reason why I want to do this is because for a lot of games that I've been anticipating for, it's really fun to just even see updates in progress and have transparency, so I figured why not just do that for my game. But for those who are unaware or just don't quite remember, Trix and Treaty has you playing as a young little kid with your sketchbook ghost, and you have 31 days to try to get your candy back from a monster. If you have enough time, in theory, you should be able to explore everything, but part of the game is realizing that having time can be pretty tricky, especially if things go south. One of the first changes that's pretty apparent is Trix's design. Their previous design I felt like was a little bit standard for like a little witch character, and I kind of wanted to make them feel a lot more kid-esque and have some resemblance of the theme being time in their character. I made it so that their hair, which was previously only sticking out for some frames, is sticking out for most frames. I added cheeks onto them because previously they had cheeks, but they were kind of looked like a mouth, and I kind of like these ones because they feel a lot more happy. I fixed their bow so that now you can actually see both strands on it, whereas previously you could not, and I gave them one sleeve that's a little bit too long, which I kind of feel like makes them a lot more kid-esque. For the time influence, I added a clock onto the back of their hat and a key. I feel like these are both pretty kind of toy-y, if that makes sense, because I kind of was basing their design off of like toys and stuff, and I think that they fit the theme pretty well for time. The clock actually does not tell time. It does rotate in their idle animation, but I tried to make it tell time, but it wobbles up and down a lot, so it's kind of hard to actually tell when you're like jumping around and stuff. The key, however, actually does rotate once every half a day. I did also change up some of their animations as well to make them a little bit more fluent and bouncy as opposed to just sort of like wobbling, which is kind of what I felt like the older animations were like. I also changed up how the UI looks. The previous UI didn't really explain everything that you had in your disposal. Like, it wouldn't actually tell you what ability you had selected or even what abilities you had. It also would not show you how much and what items you had. The new UI does show you those. I did change up how the health works too. Previously your health was just one big number, and now it's actually measured by a heart system. I kind of feel like it does give you less health overall, but at the same time I think it is a better indicator to show how much actual damage you've taken, because you can either glance at it really quickly or look at it in peripheral and see how much health you had, whereas with a number it kind of blends in a little bit. I think that also it was a good decision to make the day and money counters a little bit larger so that you can actually see those, because those are also pretty important. I also moved the UI to the bottom as opposed to just having it in the corner, because I kind of feel like making it like a hotbar again makes it better for peripheral, which is kind of what I was aiming for. The background is another thing that I've also changed as well. Previously it would just sort of dim and then like become light again, but now it actually is just a rotating background, which I am pretty open to change for this because I feel like it's a little bit not inherently bad, but I think there might be some cooler alternatives for how I might want the sky to work. I do really like the color scheme of the sky in the background though. I also do want to add more things onto the background in regards of like having silhouettes for like trees and stuff to make it a little bit more like an actual background in a setting as opposed to just the platforms. There are some combat changes to the game. Previously you would just hold down the spacebar and you would shoot a projectile forwards in the direction you're facing. Now you actually get to aim with the mouse, which I like it because it's a lot more like interactive, I guess. I know it's kind of a vague term, but what I mean is with the previous aiming system it was just kind of all platforming, you hold down the spacebar. Now you actually have to pay attention to where you're walking and where you're aiming, which I think is pretty nice. Some abilities will also shoot in different ways too, like the first one that you get, the ink ability, now actually arcs downwards as opposed to just shoots forwards. I did also add knockback to enemies, and I am thinking about maybe having a potential combo system because you can sort of ping pong them, and I think that that could be a fun little addition to add because it would prevent players from being too campy, and if you can play risky enough or wise enough, especially with your smaller time limit, you can get rewarded a lot more for it. I did also add a new combat ability, but I am putting a spoiler warning for those who might not want to see it, but it is pretty early on in the game. One thing about the ink ability that some of you might remember, some of you just might not know, is that there are invisible platforms, which are silhouettes that are mostly visible during daytime. Otherwise, they're kind of invisible. But if you shoot them with the ink ability, they will illuminate and you can actually hop on them. The bubble ability is pretty cool because you can aim it. The longer you charge it up, the farther it will travel. You're going to have it bounce off of platforms and walls, and then when it pops, it will actually create an invisible platform. You can only have one out at a time, but I think this is a pretty cool thing because you can actually like have a little bit of control over platforming, and I think it has really good synergy with the ink ability. I do kind of want future abilities, by future I mean revising old ones, because honestly I think that's what I'm doing at the moment, to have some correlation between platforming and combat and maybe even tie in with each other, which I think would also help out the combo system because of how you could just incorporate them with each other. For some future ideas and stuff, I've been working on the sound design and OST for the game. In the background you can kind of hear some early versions of the songs, which I wouldn't really say I'm an expert when it comes to writing music, but I am pretty happy with what I've came up with. I do also again want to work on the background more because at the moment I feel like it's kind of whatever, not really too bad, but I kind of feel like it's just in the right direction but not really like crazy great. I have also been working on level design. Again, I have said that I want to have more kind of like not really branching pathways but just like diverging paths, so then you have an incentive to go back and explore stuff. That's what I'm kind of aiming for with a lot of the level design. Other than that, I don't really have a crazy plan for when I want to release the game or anything like that. My ideal one is for October or November, but I personally don't really think it's crazily realistic or even really all that great because I can name a good chunk of games that are coming out around that time, so it may not even be great for competition to release like then. But either way, I'll still keep working on the game, and ultimately I would say it's close to completion, but unless some big bug comes up, it might not be, so I don't know. Otherwise, I hope you have a good day and check out other games on the tag.